welcome to this ninth episode of Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. And we should be live on a variety of different platforms. And I'll say in a moment why I've said should be. So wherever you're watching, whether it's Facebook, fingers crossed, LinkedIn, more fingers crossed, YouTube, and whether you're watching live or watching the recording, welcome to my show. I invite you to settle in, grab a brew or your favorite tipple and a notebook, because I have a few questions that I'm going to invite you to reflect on, and you'll probably want to make some notes. And if you want to express your views right away, there's a LinkedIn poll right now in the comments on my LinkedIn profile. So make sure that you make your views known there so we can see your vote. And you should be able to find the link to the poll in the description or comments of this broadcast. And I'll be asking you to share your thoughts throughout this episode. I want it to be as interactive as possible. And just for your information, with all those fingers crossed that I've had, it's easier for us to see your comments in real time so we can interact with you in conversation if you're watching on YouTube. So at the moment, Facebook and LinkedIn seems to be a little bit glitchy for us to see your comments. So what's much more reliable is heading over onto YouTube. So you can join us there for a better experience. And you'll find that at Flourishing Introverts Media. So it's really easy to find. Now, I'm always interested to know where you're joining from. So do let us know which part of the world you're currently in, or as my dear friend Mary Alice says, where your feet are currently hitting the ground. It's not unusual for us to have viewers from at least 4 different continents. So let's see where we're connecting people from today. Hello, Helen. It's lovely to see you here. Welcome here. Hello, August and Brad. Thank you very much for joining in from sunny Melbourne. Sans the sun these days. Well, that's because we've got it over here. And Sebastian and I have just been laughing because I've got the fan on here because it's really warm for the UK, even though it's not warm for you guys. And Sebastian is tuning in from Galaxy AZX10B Alpha. Love being here. Yeah, thank you. High Tech Mother. Oh, thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled you're here because I know it's really late for you. So thank you for being here. I know it's well past midnight for you. As ever, oh, and the Review Cosmo, welcome back. Welcome, hello in Tagalog from Manila, Philippines. So welcome back. I think you were with us last episode a couple of weeks ago, so welcome back. Now, as ever, and Helen's just let me know she's in South Devon and Tammy's in Portland, Oregon. So we've got a good spread across the world of people who've let us know anyway. Now, I'm being supported or held together, as I often think of it, behind the scenes by my brilliant team. And they will share comments and questions as they become relevant, because I don't always remember to look. I'm so busy focusing on sharing stuff with you that I don't always look at that. And to be honest, I never was any good at multitasking. The good news is, though, apparently none of us are. So I'm not on my own. Anyway, if there's anything that you'd like to question or challenge me on, remember that you can join the after show Zoom call where you can pick my brains. Maybe said something else then. Pick my brains, share your thoughts, and just generally kind of hang out and discuss the topic a little bit more. You'll need to register for that, and my team will put the link in the comments right now. So that gives us the opportunity for you to come join us round about just after 1:30. Now, to what seems like, oh, Dawny Beth, how lovely to see you, my darling. Thank you very much indeed. to what seems like a rather aggressive title for someone who claims not to like conflict. I assure you, this isn't aggressive, though. And it might surprise you to know that actually it's about kindness. Are you intrigued? Well, in that case, settle in for more. Because being kind to others does not mean they can use us as a doormat. And it's time to recognize that sometimes the kindest thing we can do for us, for ourselves, is to assert ourselves. And I'll say a little more about assertiveness later on. But for now, this message is for all of those people pleasers who apologize for things that they're not responsible for and who are wanting to stand up for themselves and be a bit feistier. And I've got to say, having just seen Dawny Beth join us, she is somebody who has absolutely stood up for herself and become feistier. And I love you for that, Dawny Beth. Anyway, this is the message I wished I'd had access to when I was being ridiculed and humiliated by colleagues, but told it was just banter and I should take it as a joke. Humour is subjective, right? This is the mindset I wished I'd had access to when some drunken scrote decided that it was okay to tell me that I had a face like a welder's bench. Yeah. And this is the attitude I wished I'd had access to. I wish I'd had access to for when Colin, a former colleague of mine, walked alongside me as we were walking back into work after lunch. And he said, walking behind you is like watching two boys fighting in a sack. Totally inappropriate now, but I am going back 40 years or more, actually. Well, now I have this message, I have this attitude, I have this mindset, and I gift it to you to come back to whenever you face unjust comments, unwarranted attention, and inappropriate behaviour. So, why this title, though? As I've already mentioned, isn't it a bit aggressive? Well, when I facilitate courses about influencing, about assertiveness, and almost any interpersonal skills, I usually include the evolution of cooperation work by Robert Axelrod. Here's a brief overview because it's not something that many people will have heard of, and I think it will help explain today's title. Axelrod said in his concept, in his kind of model really, that it's always more helpful to start nice, but then we need to be provocable. So we need to be able to bite back if we're bitten. And then we need to be forgiving. So we have to let people know where our boundaries are, when they've gone too far, and therefore what's not acceptable to us. So we need to be provocable and we need to be able to bite back appropriately. And I want you to notice that I'm saying bite back rather than being the first one to show your teeth. If you started nice and the other person didn't, don't be afraid to show your teeth and then intentionally move to being forgiving as quickly as is reasonable. So this is also perfectly aligned with the Batari's box model, where we notice that behavior breeds behavior. Have you ever noticed that if you're in a good mood, eventually the mood of the office lifts, but if you go in with the grumps and a sad face, guess what happens to the rest of the people? But how, might you ask, is it aligned? Well, it's aligned as I'm showing that through my behavior, the Rawbone doormat is no more. It was consigned to the scrap heap when I stopped being a people pleaser. So who am I being kind to by asserting myself? Well, I'm being kind to me and others potentially. But again, I hear you say, how is it being kind to others? Well, is it kind to leave others in the dark about our intentions, about our boundaries, or about our feelings? I think not. Just about every course I've run, whatever the client or topic or continent, come to that, poor communication will be given as part of a reason behind most of the problems. So here's the tricky bit. So many introverts say they hate talking to people and could no more make a phone call than fly to Mars. Fortunately, a lot of the people here right now don't fall into that category. And I certainly wouldn't have had a successful business for the last 30 years if I'd have succumbed to that way of thinking. No, I can't get on a call. How am I going to build rapport and win clients then? So here's the thing. How will it ever be possible for communication to improve if introverts keep telling themselves we're not good at communicating, so we won't do it? Let's remind ourselves that communication is so much more than talking. It's how we listen and the intention that we bring with that listening. Are we really listening to understand or just to respond? Are we devoting our full attention to the speaker so that we pick up more than the words they're using? And what non-verbal messages are we sending? How thoughtful and relevant are the questions that we're asking? Why does all of that matter? Well, if you want to bite back or assert yourself, it's best done with your whole self, not just a few words thrown in someone's direction, or worse still, a few words thrown in the wrong direction so the right people don't hear it. Now, even though you may have heard this from me before, it's important to remind ourselves of what assertiveness is and what it isn't. And the definition I've used for many years now was derived from Ken and Kate Back's work, who were actually the first people I came across who were talking about assertiveness. So my version of their definition is that assertiveness is standing up for your rights and needs whilst respecting the rights and needs of others. That's what you're doing when you bite back. You're standing up for your rights and needs. You're not discounting or denying another person their rights, nor are you denying or discounting your own. So let's see if we've got any comments or questions that I can address right now. Okay. I think assertiveness, so this is from Dramaniac TV. I think assertiveness is sometimes misunderstood because many truly arrogant people, yes, claim they are being assertive when they're just being a D-bag. You're right, Chris. You're absolutely right. And more than that, many organizations that I work in, they will, talk about some big characters around the place who are assertive. And when I observe these people in action, they are not assertive. They are aggressive. So aggressive and arrogance for me pretty much goes hand in hand. So thank you for raising that, Chris. I appreciate that. High-tech mother, I've always felt that being assertive makes me look like a rude person. Husband made me strong, but in some ways I still get nervous. Yes. And again, because thank you for sharing that comment with us, because especially as women, we're often brought up to think that we should be the nice people who kind of don't rock the boat, who don't say too much. So it's very interesting that as we age, as we mature, we kind of get to that point of saying, actually, that's not good enough. And I do need to assert myself. And that's why what I'm going to share with you later will be how to assert yourself without being rude or without feeling rude. So thank you for that. Helen, yes, I really dislike it when people say, I'm just being honest. That is possibly a classic case of passive aggressive behavior. Passive aggressive behavior is when people make light of a situation kind of in a diggy, bantery way, And so if somebody had a timekeeping problem, they'd probably go, oh, afternoon shift's arrived, you know, dropping a big hint and hoping that the person would pick up on it, rather than saying, I've noticed there have been a few occasions now where your timekeeping is slipping. So can we have a conversation about that this afternoon? That would be an assertive way to approach it, whereas the passive aggressive is just to kind of dig and drop hints, etc. And what that does is leave people feeling pretty naff. And if they then call out the person, guess what comes back? Well, I'm only joking. Can't you take a joke? Which comes back to that point you're saying about I'm only being honest. And you're right, Helen. Rarely is it factual. It's an opinion. Yeah, and Tammy's agreeing with you. Perfect. Just because it's honest doesn't mean it needs to be said. Absolutely right. And I'm deviating a bit, but in a recent episode, I talked about the THINK acronym that I use. And this is largely about when we give feedback, but it's to think before we give feedback. Is it true? Is it helpful? Does it inspire change? Is it necessary? And is it kind? So I agree. Husband and I are surprisingly assertive in most cases. Brilliant. He's an introvert and I'm an extrovert, but we're both quite confident in drawing lines with people. Fabulous. And you're good for each other in that you balance each other out for that. I love that. Sebastian saying, I'm all for being assertive, but I often find I struggle with it. With people I love, yes, because we often think that somehow we're going to hurt them. But do you know what? It's more hurtful to not be honest, to not be truthful with people. So I was going to say, before I get into it, I have to ask how comfortable you are with being assertive. And, you know, that wasn't going to be a rhetorical question. And thank you for already sharing. But I think there's still some space for you to share how comfortable you are. We've just heard from August and from Brad. But some of the rest of you, how comfortable are you genuinely being assertive? You see, for some, it comes pretty easily. They know their value and they hold their rights and needs high. Yet for others, it's as challenging as flying to the moon. And of course, some of your comments, sorry, I've just been distracted. My cat has just come in the room shouting. For some of you, your comfort zone will depend, or your comfort around being assertive will depend on the work you've done to understand your inner critic and flip your limiting beliefs so that they empower or liberate you from the restrictions that you've been experiencing. Over the years, I created my own ABC of biting back, and I'm here to share that with you today because I'm nothing if not generous, right? And it's this ABC that of biting back that allowed me to ditch my people-pleasing ways. So if you want to hear them, they're coming up right now. We've got a few more people joining. So before I go into the ABC of biting back, let's hear where people are joining from. Feel free to let us know and I'll come back and welcome you, because wherever you're joining from, you are most welcome. Now, ABC of biting back. A is for assertiveness. You probably would have recognized that. And that's why I've given you the definition of assertiveness. Remember, it's about standing up for your rights and needs whilst respecting the rights and needs of others. Whereas aggression is, I have rights and needs, you don't have any. And passive is, oh, it's only me, I don't really have any rights and needs. So assertiveness is standing up for your rights and needs whilst respecting the rights and needs of others. The B of biting back is bravery. And for me, these three are a holy trinity, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, because I think it's hard to be assertive and to be true to yourself and be assertive without being brave. And for me, being brave is about taking those steps that I'd rather not take in some way. Recognizing that there may be risk involved, not putting myself at risk in a dangerous way, but recognizing that actually I'm going to ruffle a few feathers. And the C is for confidence, because again, that's the third part of this holy trinity. And what I've recognized is that we need to be brave in order to be confident and in order to be assertive. So it doesn't matter in a way where we start, but it's a kind of melting pot, and we need all of those ingredients in order to be able to bite back powerfully yet gently. So these are, of course, interdependent of each other. And if you remember me talking about confidence, you'll probably remember me saying that I believe bravery, as I say, is a necessary precursor to confidence. And you need confidence and bravery to be assertive. So this holy trinity is magic and really worth mastering. So this simple ABC has allowed me to do on many an occasion to disrupt the power dynamics that are accepted as the norm. And sadly, in too many organizations, they are accepted as a norm. I've been in situations where people seem to thrive on what they consider to be the imbalance of power. They felt it was okay to overstep boundaries, and for me to be, they expected me to be kind of submissive. Situations like that, however, taught me an invaluable lesson or two. And those lessons have shaped who and how I am today. So I am incredibly grateful for those lessons, and I wouldn't want to change my past in any way. So I am thankful for that, because it's enabled me to claim agency, enabling me to challenge the status quo, rattle the cages, and be a positive disruptor. And I'm able to bite back with dignity and without malice. So calmly, without getting angry, without getting fiery, and sometimes quite quietly, but there's no missing it. I've always said that, I wouldn't want to change anything from my past, anything that I've experienced, because even though much of it was very messy, it's made me who I am today. Now, the show is called Dropping Pebbles in the Pond. So are you ready for today's pebble? So this pebble that I'm dropping, whose ripples are going to go far and wide, is the ability to bite back and be kind and know that it can happily coexist in all of us. So we don't need one or the other. We can have both. We can luxuriate in the fact that knowing we have both. It just requires a change of mindset and valuing yourself appropriately. That symbiotic pair enable us to set and hold boundaries firmly and with compassion. It enables us to invite respectful and transparent communications. It enables us to preserve self-respect, self-esteem, and dignity for all parties. It enables us to encourage the rightful taking of responsibility. And it enables us to build stronger relationships with a healthy power balance. And if you recognize that you need more of any of these, take a leaf out of my book and learn your ABCs. Embody, practice, and experiment. Things may not always go perfectly as you start, but with each new attempt, you'll find yourself feeling stronger and reaping the rewards. As I conclude today's show, I want to leave you with this thought. While biting back and kindness may appear contradictory, well, on the surface at least, they can actually be complementary strategies for navigating conflicts and for fostering positive relationships. By embracing authentic assertiveness, being braver, taking confident action, you'll be better placed to hold your boundaries, promote mutual respect, and create new opportunities. And all of that without malice, aggression, or spite. And some of those boundaries may be about the time we need to take for ourselves, whether that's younger audience members that I have who recognize when their battery is draining and when they're at 20%, they need to go off into their own kingdom, or whether it's more mature members of the audience who can hear what their children and the young people around them are asking for and listen really well. So here's the big question. The big question I want to leave you with. Are you ready and willing to learn and implement these ABCs? Just think about the difference it will make to you in your life when you bite back assertively, with bravery and with confidence. If you're anything like some of my clients, you may just hear yourself, who even am I? Biting back with confidence. And that's a really good sign. You see, ABC, it's easy as 1, 2, 3. It's giving my age away, isn't it? And you'll soon get the hang of it. Oh, and before I forget, do remember to join the Zoom after show conversation. You'll see the link come up now, and make sure that you click on that and register so that you can join us in conversations. I know that there could well be some final questions or comments. So now's a good time to drop them for me to see. And if I can pick them up now, I will. If not, bring them to the Zoom call. Because more importantly, I always like to know what you're taking away from today's show. What's your biggest takeaway from this episode? What questions has it raised in your mind? What thoughts are you still pondering? And is there a promise or a pledge that you're making to yourself right about now? So, thank you for joining me. We're just sneaking up to the half hour, so pretty much on time. And do join me where I'll be able to talk a bit more about this and look at things from your perspective. But for now, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time for the next episode.